Yeah, good morning, everyone. So thank you for joining for our November meetup of the AWS user group, Colombo. So today we have Sanchit Jain joining us. He's the lead architect at AWS at Quantify, and he's also AWS partner ambassador and a fellow community builder. So today he's going to talk about AWS Glue DataBrew. I'm pretty excited because I'm not at all familiar with that service. Uh, so without further ado, I think I'll give it over to Sanchit. Sanchit, yeah, you can start the session.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present around DataBrew. And yeah, also I think this is my first session in your user group, so I'm pretty much excited.
Yeah.
And yeah, looking forward to have more people around it, and we can have this interaction more fun. I would request everyone, please feel free to post your questions in chat or raise your hand or stop me where you feel you need more detail around it. I'll be more than happy to take a pause, help you out with your understanding and clear any doubts. But let's ensure that at the end of the session, we all have better understanding about this service and we learn something new from this one. With that, let me switch over to my presentation. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Once it's there. Is my screen visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Awesome. So yeah, today we'll be talking about AWS DataBrew. Before that, let me run through the agenda. So for agenda will be introduction, like why you need DataBrew, all about what's the industry need, industry adoption around it. Overview of DataBrew, where we try to drill down a bit more theoretical, like what exactly is DataBrew, or the different functionality, the terminologies around it, what are the different features and functionality that we'll talk about in overview. For sure, a demo. I don't want to make it more theoretical and boring in the morning. So there will be a quick demo where I'll have a public data set where we'll try in the AWS console, go around hands-on and understand how you can work or what's a hello world kind of example you can have. And at the last, I want to keep a Q&A, but again, this is a standard pattern. If you feel that you want to interrupt me at the beginning itself to have better understanding, please feel free to do it. I'll be more than happy to answer all of your questions. So yeah, I think already I have introduced. Let me talk about myself. I'm Sanchit Jain, based out of India, Mumbai, working as a lead architect at AWS. I'm an analytics specialist in AWS business unit at Quantify, as well as I'm been an AWS ambassador for over a year. I'm already part of AWS community builder for data stream. Feel free. I'm more happy to share my energy or my experience so far in IT industry. I've been working on AWS itself right from day one of this my entire IT career. So if you need any help from technical perspective, if you need any help from community perspective, or if you want me to have any of sessions in different, I'm more than happy and willing to do it. Please reach out to me in any mediums of social forms like LinkedIn, Twitter, GitHub. I'm very active in all those stuff. You can also reach out to me, WhatsApp, other stuff. I'm more than happy to engage in any way where you guys need my help. Going towards the next, before we start understanding about what exactly is DataBrew features, functionality, let me take a step back and let me start with why, right? It's always important that you understand why do you need that service rather than understanding an introduction about it, right? Most of the people we know, right? I mean, one of the things, if I like to share is in this entire COVID era, one of the biggest revolutionary that took place is in the data world. How I'm telling you about that and why I'm confident about it. You talk about, let's say, many of the customers are more interested is, I need to build an analytical platform. I need to build a warehouse around it. I need to modernize my digital platform, or I need to build a machine learning platform to get trends and understand my customer, or I need to have some machine learning use case to understand how my business is going to work. Right? It's all over the data. In what form you consume the data, whether you're building an BI around it, visualization, whether you're building some sort of a conversational around it, some design patterns around it, or you try to build a data lake or warehouse around it, right? End of the day, the core remains is the data, right? Where when it comes to data part of it, generally we are very excited when we see different trends, different charts, different machine learning outcomes, right? Because we always prefer as an outcome emphasize that, okay, hey, it should look beautiful at the end. But do we really understand that how much effort generally a data analyst or a person puts in the backend when it comes to the cleansing of the data, analyzing the data, understanding the data, right? That's exactly AWS identified the pain and the effort that goes in just data preparation activity. And that's how DataBrew come into the place as a no-code data prep visualization tool, which help you to prep your data without writing a single line of code. It's completely serverless and no code. That means you don't have to write the code. You just need to understand your data. Based on understanding or profiling your data, you have to take different actions. Like you need to how you want to transform your data, split the column, or fill out the missing values, or handle data skewness. Those are the different action you can perform around it, and that's how DataBrew can help you around it. The service was invented by AWS last year in 2020, but I would see honestly this has picked up pretty well. If I talk about myself, we started using this or leveraging this service somewhere around early this year. There are like a couple of projects where we are getting a fantastic results from this DataBrew, and we are not just reducing the human efforts, but as well as the time that takes to prep the data. And I can assure you, because we Quantify itself is an analytical company, so we leverage this service pretty well, right? So that's how it works, right? If I talk about this memes, this is a very memes. I mean, I've got it from somewhere in the social media platform, where also there was people discussing about the same thing, right? That everyone wants a clean data. I don't want to spend any effort on understanding my data and that stuff. It should be in a very great format, tabular format. I just write some machine learning algorithm on top of it or some BI around it, but it's always there. But how many are ready to put that effort of cleansing? I think no one will really like to write very custom big Python code or writing some ETL jobs on top of it, making the changes on data type here and there, right? That's exactly will DataBrew around it. And on an average, that minimum help you to reduce the 50% of the time which data analysts consume as of today, with just replacing it with DataBrew. So that's why we need DataBrew. Let's understand next what exactly is DataBrew, right? I think I've set a very good foundation in the previous slide for you to analyze or visualize what exactly is the DataBrew all around, right? So as I mentioned in the previous slide, the same definition is what we'll recap here. DataBrew is more around the visualization tool, data prep. It's a visualization no-code data prep, which makes it very easy for data analysts or any data science to prepare the data in a very interactive, user-friendly way. With help of the visualization, writing no code, you can drag and drop different functionalities. You can do different things like understanding your data, profiling the data, understanding the quality of the data. We'll all go through all those things what I'm describing now in a couple of slides. When we are doing the more demo part of it, you will understand how exactly things work when you are working on DataBrew as hands-on, right? And a capability perspective, if I talk about, as I mentioned, very must functionality profiling, right? Profiling of your data is very important. That's, I would say, is an analysis what you do on top of your data in simple words. That way you identify what's the quality of your data, how many columns, the schema, is there particular column wise, what's the quality of data, right? Those kinds of different analysis what you get when you do a profiling. So it's a very must and core functionality of DataBrew or any of the analysis what you or data preparation where you do. Next is cleansing and normalizing your data, right? For sure, when you talk about, I mean, anyone machine learning in this group will understand when I talk about normalization, it's very important that you take the entire data grid within the range. There is like less number of outliers. Otherwise, your machine learning model will go haywire out when it comes to the performance and accuracy, right? If they got trained on that outlier data set. So cleansing that data, filling out the missing values or normalizing the range of data also becomes very important. Next is lineage. Now, we all know about the lineage. If anyone doesn't know about lineages, lineage is like a visual graph which help you to analyze and understand how your data was processed across different components. Let's say you plug the data to DataBrew, what kind of different DataBrew activity is done, what things DataBrew embedded to process that data, those kinds of a visual workflow. And at the last, very important thing, when we talk about AWS, we always expect how I can automate this stuff, right? It's a pretty common question, I would say. Okay, we are good, we are sold, these are the functionality, but how I'm going to automate? I don't want to go and do this job every day, right? So that's how DataBrew help you to automate this thing also not only provide world-class functionality out of the box, but also provides functionality where you can automate the entire configuration, entire cleansing activity and all. Plus, as well as you can also schedule on top of it, not only just automate, right? You can just say, okay, for example, 2 a.m. EST, you just go and run this job because I know that time I'm going to get the data. I don't want to be awake in the late night. So those kinds of different automation and scheduling you can do on top of that, and need not to say the entire CloudWatch, CloudTrail, those are the basic core of any AWS services. So entire monitoring and tracking also you get out of the box. So those are the different capabilities of DataBrew, I would say. When it comes to need, we have understood it pretty well in the previous slide. Let me recap in short quickly. 50% what we know is the time spent in terms of prepping the data. It's time consuming because it's a very manual, human driven exercise. You need to understand your data, do a multi-step processing in extracting, cleansing, loading, understanding the schema. Because I've also personally gone through this phase, the schema evaluation, which means the change in schema is very frequent in the raw data. It's not that, okay, you have a fixed schema, then this pain get reduced further significantly. But generally speaking, in actual data set, you will see the schema also keep changing after every pull, right? There'll be small changes, either the data type or the kind of, I would say the quality of the data for a given column. It will keep evolving over every pull, every incremental load. So it's very time consuming, manual driven. It's very expensive, right? For sure, there are tools available in the market which can help you, right? I don't want to name of them, but there are tools, ETL tools available in the market. You guys would have used about it or would have heard about it. The licensing part of that tool, as well as automation, the way it processes the data in very silos, and again, the way you can get into integrated in AWS, it's very painful. There are tools which you can deploy on AWS itself, but again, the maintenance, the operationalization part of it is expensive on top of the licensing part. That's exactly the best part of DataBrew itself, right? Again, it's an AWS technology, so it's going to follow the same thing, pay as you go kind of a model. So that gives you very easy. If you're using it, then you're paying for it. You're not paying any upfront license cost. And the last one is around the manual. As we touch base, the same point in time consuming. It's a very manual, human-driven exercise. Multiple steps are there where you need to be sure that if you make some mistake at step one, it's going to propagate to the end, and you're going to know at the end of when you're training a model or create some BI visualization, at that extreme end, you will identify that, okay, hey, something went wrong at stage one itself. So it's quite errorless. You have to just be sure that, okay, you avoid making any mistakes. Otherwise, it's going to be very expensive in terms of the effort and time. So that's about the need, capability, and what exactly around is the data. Let me go to the next one about the overview. So this visualization will help you to understand how exactly DataBrew process from an overview perspective. So on the left-hand side, you see different sources that have been provided on DataBrew. Data lake. Ideally, when we talk about data lake, S3 becomes a single source of truth for all those stuff. So if I talk about local files, we talk about S3 bucket, we talk about data glue catalog, Redshift, JDBC. Even it also supports some external sources. We all know about Snowflake now in the market. So it also supports Snowflake as a data source. At the center, you will see a big picture of DataBrew. It helps you to select the data source, build a recipe, join data, and schedule. For sure, we'll get back in the upcoming slide to understand what exactly is recipe, schedule, as I mentioned in the automation stage also, and how those different things works. And it provides somewhere around 250 plus inbuilt different types of transformation. So here things which is mentioned, right? Remove nulls, filling missing values, lowercase, uppercase, join, data skew, you do a different kinds of normalization, remove outliers. All those transformations, such kinds of 250 transformations are provided by DataBrew. All those at no code. Inbuilt are available. You just drag on your data set. Remember what operation you're doing, where exactly you're placing around it. You can preview the changes and you can record all those steps. So those such 250 transformations are provided DataBrew. These are the different, I would say, intermediate outcomes with DataBrew generates. Cleaning data source, obviously. Recipe. I'll talk about recipe in the next slide. Data profile, as I mentioned, data profile, the analysis of your data set. data quality not only just on overall data quality, how it looks like, but on a specific column wise column, that how exactly the data looks like in terms of the missing values, the entire proportional or range of your data. All those details you get understand on data quality. At the last, the data lineage, which is a visual workflow. And then you can plug this entire cleanse data to different kinds of stuff, right? Not just limited to this. You can do machine learning on top of it. You can just do reporting. You can derive some insights around it. You can extract the data. Those kinds of different kinds of operational you can do on the cleanse data, which are just limited of 10. You know the rest, right? There are multiple things what we can do on the cleanse data. So this is how generally, and I would say an overview or a workflow kind of a stuff when it comes to DataBrew around it. The advantages, if we go from a clockwise perspective, starting with, it's a serverless, which is very important, right? When you talk about any sorts of data processing capability, we have to be very sure that it scales as per the load of the data, or the number of rows of that in the data set. So it's a serverless. Based on the number of rows, it's going to easily scale. You don't have to worry about any sorts of compute and all this stuff. How similar things like Lambda and those things works, or other Glue things work. Similar is the DataBrew service also scale as per the load. Second, you can connect different data sources. I think we spoke about of them like S3, Flatfile, Redshift, Snowflake. Those are different kinds of data sources it supports. 250 plus inbuilt transformation. I think we touched point in the previous slide about that. The best part about DataBrew is it can also integrate in your existing ETL pipeline. Let's say I have seen a couple of companies or a couple of places where they have the data pipeline built in other orchestration workflows like Airflow, if we talk about AWS managed workflows, step functions, or some other off-the-shelf tool. Now, if you want to leverage DataBrew in that particular ETL without making any changes, that's also seems possible. You can build an entire DataBrew workflow, or what we generally call as a job, and you can trigger that job, extract the result, or retry with help of the SDKs. We all know Boto3 Python, that's a common SDK when we talk about AWS. With help of Boto3 Python, you can perform the same operation how we can do on other resources. So this way you can also plug in your existing pipeline DataBrew capability. At the last, the entire visual workflow capability, if you want to understand. This functionality becomes more helpful when you schedule a job and you keep it running in the back end, right? Let's say you have this job running somewhere in the middle of night, and you want to understand if something goes wrong or how your job got processed. With help of this visual workflow, you can easily trace, okay, where the output got stored, what was the input, how it got processed, if it got failed, and where it got failed. Those kinds of different tracking mechanism is very helpful with help of this data visualization. So here are a couple of advantages which help a lot when it comes to the data part of it. Here comes the core concepts, right? Before we go on to the demo slides, it's very important that we understand different terminologies around DataBrew, right? So as I was holding a lot in terms of what exactly is recipe, it's the right time now. In this slide, I'll talk about all those different terminologies. First, let's start from left side, from the top, data set. Pretty simple to understand. Any source system which you want to process via DataBrew is called as data set. Anything, S3, any file in S3, or any local file, any RDS table, or any data glue catalog, that particular thing is called as a data set. Project. Project in simple words, if I talk about, is a workspace, right? Now, a workspace or a kind of a folder, just think of like a folder where you're going to do any of the stuff, right? Whether you plug your data set, you do all processing or store the output, right? That becomes a logical folder kind of stuff. Recipe, very important terminology or a concept here. Recipe is more like how I can say is like an instruction file. We'll understand the recipe, how it looks like, right? It's by default supported in JSON and YAML format. Recipe is more like an instruction. Okay, so as I mentioned in the previous slide also, that DataBrew help you to not only provide functionality but even to do the automation. Now, in case of automation, in case of DataBrew, what you're going to do is, okay, here is my data sources. That these are the different kinds of transformation I do. Let's say column A, make it lowercase. Column B, replace the missing values. Column C, let's say you split into multiple columns. Those kinds of different instruction what you give, that instructions get captured in a file which is called as recipe. you can extract or download that recipe, reuse it, plug it. That's the entire core of your job. So you can not only share the recipe, you can schedule the recipe, or you can store it into GitHub as a code kind of a thing, code-based kind of stuff, right? You can version the recipe. Those are the different kind of stuff what you can do with recipe. And this is the very core of whatever you're going to do with DataBrew. It's very important that we understand how this recipe works, how it looks like, and for sure, save the recipe in the right format, right? Again, you don't have to worry. You don't have to code the recipe like a manual kind of stuff. It's by default get captured when you're doing any interaction in terms of transformation on the console itself. You just have to extract it, save it, or save it in code repository or anywhere, so you can reuse in future, or you can save in the console itself. This is like a common across all the DataBrew jobs. So you can save it in the console itself, you can version it, and you can create a track from there itself. On the right hand side, the next one at the top is the job. Pretty simple to understand. The job is just kind of an instruction when you're executing a recipe, right? There are two kinds of jobs there. One is a profiling job, and the second is a recipe job. So profiling is more in terms of analyzing your data set. And recipe job is based on the transformation guidance or instruction what you have given to DataBrew. It will perform that. We'll understand or we'll do hands-on on both of this job. Data lineage, again, I've spoken a lot about it. It's again the same. The lineage, it will help you when you're doing a profiling job also, it will give you the lineage, as well as when you're doing a recipe job, it will give you the lineage. Last, data profile. Data profile is more like an analysis, a kind of a grid, which help you to understand the quality, the different factors of your data, how it looks like from a quality and other perspective. So we can perform different transformation, which as per your requirement of the final output data set. So these are the 6 core concepts, I would say, which we will be using frequently when you're talking about DataBrew or when you're doing the hands-on part. Now let's jump to the demo. I won't make you more bore about talking a lot about DataBrew. So let me jump towards demo part of it. So in case of demo, we'll have it into 5 stages. The prerequisite, we'll create data set and project, explore and preparing the data set, creating the DataBrew job, and finally the lineage. Don't worry about it. I will be doing the demo here live in front of you, as well as I've captured this presentation, all the steps, what I'm going to do, the scripts in a GitHub repository. I'll share that GitHub repository with all of you guys, so you can try the same at your end. And yeah, need not to say, if you have any errors, for sure, you can reach out to me. I'll be happy to. So now I will jump to the AWS console. One second. So yeah. So this is a pretty common stuff. I think we are pretty much aware about the AWS console, right? So what I'll do is, right, first step, if we talk about, is the prerequisites. Now, if I go to the next slide, the next slide in the prerequisites, as I mentioned, is a download link, which is pointing to my GitHub repository, which will give you the cloud formation and a data set. And you have to deploy a simple cloud formation, right? If you don't know, let's say this is the first time you're working with AWS and you don't know about how to do the cloud formation, don't worry. This recording is also, I mean, this entire call is also getting recorded. So you can follow the same instruction or same step how I'm doing that. So this is an AWS console. What we'll do is in the search bar itself, you can type AWS cloud formation. As you start typing cloud formation, so you'll see the service comes up at the top. You have to just click on that service. Okay. Then what you have to do is you have to click on this create stack, which is on the right side. And there are 2 ways, right? Either you can import existing or new resource. For us, it's going to be a new resource. So we'll click on this new resource. Now there are multiple ways you can provide the template. You can point to S3 bucket, or you can upload from locally. I'll select and upload from locally. And I'll give the cloud formation template. Again, however you do it via S3, you do it while upload locally. End of the day, AWS will upload to S3 itself and launch the template. So that's what AWS is going to do at their end. So we upload the cloud formation, which is provided in the GitHub repository. We'll click on next, give a name to it. Okay. I've given a name to it. Click on next. I'm not making any changes. I'll keep everything else. Just only I'm going to select this acknowledgement because we're going to launch an IAM rule for the DataBrew. So I'll talk about that cloud formation also. So we'll click on this and create stuff. That's it. It's pretty simple. Couple of clicks and it will just ease out the entire prerequisite work. What I'm going to do is it will take roughly a minute. In meantime, I'll switch over to my text editor and we'll talk about how exactly the things looks like when it comes to the cloud formation. So cloud formation is very simple, right? Straightforward stuff. It's infrastructure as a code and it's going to launch two resources. An S3 bucket. So this is the S3 bucket which I'm going to use for throughout this demo, right from uploading the data set, any output that got generated via DataBrew, everything I'm going to capture in this bucket. Okay, that's one. The second is an IAM role. Now, in case of IAM role also, right, I've given a very minimal kind of policy which is required. Get, put, delete, put cross bucket and list bucket, and specifically to the DataBrew output bucket. And what we are giving here is this role is what we are mapping specifically the DataBrew service. So this way we are allowing DataBrew to download the data, to upload the data, I mean, make any new changes in that bucket in terms of what we want to do. And finally, I'm just printing the output. So that's a very simple cloud formation I'm putting around it. Again, need not worry if you don't know about this stuff. I'm going to share this. So you just have to click upload this and it will take care of everything what's required. Just ensure throughout the demo, since the policies are very strict and restricted to the specific bucket, don't try to change the bucket and all when you're working around DataBrew. This will be tightly bound to the bucket which is deployed by the cloud formation. So if you're getting any error, mostly it will be around because you haven't provided the right bucket to the DataBrew. So as we can see, the cloud formation is completed successfully. And if I go under the resources, there are three things which is launch: IAM role, IAM policy, and the output bucket. And if I go on the output, please capture or preserve the role name and the S3 bucket, because we want to be sure that we provide the right role name in DataBrew with the right bucket. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open a new tab here. So now if I switch back to the presentation, prerequisites, as I mentioned, download the cloud formation, download the data set and upload to S3. So what we'll do is now we'll go and upload the data set. So where you're going to upload the data set? In the same bucket, DataBrew demo, DataBrew output S3 bucket. So I've clicked on S3. Similarly, if you're new to the entire AWS world, you can search for services from the search bar itself. You just have to type and from the drop down, you can select that. So I'll wait for a minute for the services get list. Again, since I was doing a dry run before the demo, you can see here that, okay, we have this dry run bucket created, but please watch out. You have to create this particular, select this bucket. Right now, here, what we're going to do is first we're going to create a folder. Just to logically separate the output. So I've created a folder called as raw data set. Under raw data set, I'm going to simply go ahead and upload, add a file. This data is going to be my public data set, which I've downloaded. Just to give a quick download about this data set, this is a COVID data set of the United States for the month of March, which I got from their website, health website. So this is a all state. So for all state COVID information for the month of March for 2021, that's what I've downloaded and uploaded to S3. And on this data set, we will be performing all the operations. Let me switch back to my presentation. So we have launched the cloud formation. We have uploaded the data set, and cloud formation is also completed with the role name and S3 bucket, right? Let's go to the next. Now what we are saying is next is create a project. So for that, what we have to do is go to the DataBrew, open console, select project and provide the details. I'll quickly jump onto the AWS console and click on so here, same goes, you can search since I have already there I'm using the service frequently. It's already in the recent. So I click on this service. What we are going to do, say if you are working with DataBrew for the first time, it's going to click on create project. If you have already leveraged it, it can directly prompt you there. What we're going to do is simply click on create project. Assuming that we don't have anything, we're doing it for the first. First, you have to provide the DataBrew. Again, I'll recap. Project was like a workspace, as we understood in the terminology or the concept. Project is a workspace where you define the data source and you perform all the operations and actions which is required on the data source. So DataBrew demo. As you can see, when you create DataBrew project, it can by default name as DataBrew. You can change the recipe name. You can create new. You can use existing and other stuff, right? For sure, we are going to use the existing one, but let me make it something interesting. What we'll do is we're going to work on the create new. Now, so this was the project part of it. You just create a blank workspace. Second important thing comes up is data source. Now I need to provide a data source, otherwise it doesn't make any sense. So what we are going to do in the data sources, you can already see that, okay, 2 hours back since I've done a dry run, then I've defined a data source. This is the same data source, what we will be working around. But what are we going to do? You can either create a sample file around it, which is, as I mentioned, right? You remember the local files also you can upload, or you can also upload the file from an S3. So what we are going to do is we'll just name around it. So what we'll move to demo data set. So we'll make that name, and what we are going to do here is we are going to select on DataBrew. So do ensure that you select the right bucket here. It's very important. So what we're going to do, DataBrew, what output, this is what we have created. Don't select, I mean, for sure I've done the dry run, but if you have the similar name bucket, please ensure that you select the right bucket. So we'll select the here output, and then by default, when you select on this bucket, you will see that it gives you that same console kind of read. This is a bucket what we just, the file we uploaded here. Again, please verify that you upload to the right. And then automatically you can select the different kinds of formatting here, right? Okay, is it CSV, JSON, Parquet, Excel, and tab delimiter. You can also provide whether it's a first row as header or the default row. The important thing is providing the IAM role here, and click on create project. This is the fun thing. Now, when you're working on the creating project, right? So what are the different activities that generally happen in the back? It's going to compute, it's going to launch a compute, right? As we understood, it's a serverless. Behind the scene, we all know when we talk about serverless, it's an illusion for the end user. But at the backend, AWS do launch a compute for a short period of that particular time period, right? So it launched the entire compute part of it, all the libraries and what they need. Now it's initiating the sessions, like configuring all the packages, all those things which is required for DataBrew to process around the data. Now it's understanding or prepping your data, right? You can analyze all this notification thing. It's not important. I just want to be sure that you understand how it works. So it's prepping up the data. Now it's retrieving your sample data. It's trying to analyze your data. And finally, once it is done, you would see it has by default, without doing any sorts of profiling, any work, it has given you a very beautiful representation of your data, where you can understand not only how your data looks like, but in a very, you can also see the schema, the entire visualization of your entire CSV, what you have uploaded, right? So you can just identify, okay, how the data looks like. It is for, let's say, for 6th of March, 2021, for 7th of March, 2021. That's a range of data, what you're getting around it. This is a proportional by state wise, how you're getting the data. So those are the different values you can get from here, right? Without doing any sorts of processing. We haven't even selected any operational as of now. So this is a very plain representation of your data. Next, if I click on, you can, this was a grid view. As you can see on the right, somewhere right in the sample screen, this is a schema. It's always important, right? When you are doing certain, any sorts of data prep, it's not necessary that you need all the columns. You want to for sure go and drop certain columns. Same operation, what you can do here after going to the schema representation, you can toggle, you can show and hide, toggle the commands, and you can ensure that you only pick up the right column, which is also very important. Generally, not for DataBrew, generally also it's very important that you pick up the right data set or right columns in it, which you are interested to make it more faster, or have a very focused approach on those data set. And at the last, profiling, right? So far, I think what we have understood is very plain representation. You don't know how the data set look like. Does it have missing values? For sure, we can identify that, okay, for sure, there are missing values are there from the column itself, but we don't know what proportion it is, how many rows are missing values, what's an overall quality of data. So in order to understand that, what we are going to do is we are going to click here, profile, and I'll click on the run profile. So as you can see, run profile, it's the first job what we had there. I spoke about the jobs, right, in the concepts. So this is one of the type of the stuff where you can specify, I want to do it on the full row or on, full data set, or you can define the custom rows. As per the type of your data set, as kind of application you're working, you can toggle between any of the stuff. You can also see the output data set which you have plugged, right, which is the DataBrew or raw data set, all state history. The same thing what we have done. The output where we want to specify, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to select same bucket, and I'm going to select. Here you can give the I've given the S3 location of it. You can provide any other stuff, right? There are a couple of places where you're working with very sensitive data of insurance, healthcare, what type of the nature of data. You can encrypt the output file. You can provide other kinds of configuration. Do you want to retry? How you want to handle the duplicate part of it? Those kinds of other details, what you can provide here, right? In the kinds of additional configuration. From a demo perspective, we'll keep it very simple and straight. We'll skip all this option. We'll directly provide the detail. We'll give the demo around it. And again, you can create the job and you can schedule it, or you can create and run. For the demo, we'll create and run here. This entire profiling exercise is very intense. It's going to take somewhere around like 2 to 3 minutes for this entire profiling to get done, right? Behind the scene, it's going to draw and create a sort of a heap map and those kinds of things where we can understand from this itself, right? This is like kind of a summary output, correlation, heat map, which is going to create those kinds of detail what is going to do, right? In this intermediate time, what we are going to do is I'll switch to the another project. So this is a dry run demo which I've created, right? Until the profiling output is getting ready, what I'll do, I'll teach how exactly you should generate the recipe. That is very important, right? As I mentioned, recipe is core. So we'll understand how exactly you can generate a recipe, how you can export the recipe, those kinds of stuff, what we are going to do. So let's wait for this entire prep activity to be done. This is going to be very fast. Let's wait for this. So it's initiating the session. That's how, as I mentioned, right? This is serverless, so it will be only available for that interaction when you're working on this particular project. Since I stopped working on this project, it terminated the infrastructure. That's kind of serverless what we were referring initially. So we'll wait for a few more minutes for the session to be there.
Sanchit, like while you wait, can I ask a question?
I think I'm just waiting for the session to get initiated. There.
Hi, Sanchit.
Okay, awesome. I think almost there. I think what we do. Okay, yeah, finally. So again, I mean, it's going to do the same exercise. I don't know. Apologies. I think something went wrong with the previous one. So when I refresh, it starts from scratch. So it's retrieving that sample data set. It should be there in a minute. Cool. So this is the dry run project where we were working around it, right? Now I'm going to, I mean, the profiling output, as we saw, it's all there. But what we are going to do is we'll try to understand in this dry run how exactly you can work on recipes and how you can generate a recipe, how you can extract a recipe, right? Let's focus on that stuff, and then we'll switch to the project which we were working around the demo part. So here you can see the same data grid which I was working on that new project. The second one, you can simply work on the transformation, right? First of all, this all different kinds of transformations are there, 250 plus what we understood, right? You can do different things, right? You can just format, you can select on these 3 dots. It's pretty simple. You can click on this column action. You can get a list of all the operations from here. You can select on the format. Let's say date format you can do. For example, I think I want to just make it, let's say, year, month, and date. Now, what you can do is, simple of all, this is the operation what I've given. For the date column, from this particular format, I'm just choosing this particular format. I can apply to all the rows, or I can apply to specific filter, right? You can preview the change also. So there is a note given here, column type will be changed to string after you apply this transformation. So please watch out and be sure, because you're working with data. You need to be cautious on that. You can preview the changes before you apply, right? That will give you that how your output will look like. So the output is pretty fast. It just took like less than half a second, and it's all there. So it applied the source and it gives the preview. What is done is simply it just clean the timestamp part of it from here. And once you are sure that, okay, this is exactly what you're looking, you have to click on the apply. As in when you are applying around, you will see a specific thing that has come down on the right side in the recipe section. You will see the first instruction got applied, change the format of date to particular format what we have selected. That becomes your first instruction. Let's try to make a second one. In the second one, this is a state. I make it, again, 3 columns format. I make it to a lowercase. As simple of all, I mean, we don't have to, I mean, again, you can preview the same thing and understand, but yeah, it's going to be very simple. It's going to just make a lowercase part of it. So I'll simply click on apply. As you can see, it got applied and that second got extracted. Let me go ahead and, okay, this was the null value, right? Let's say you want to replace all the null value with a custom filling. You know, by default that if the data is missing, it has to be 0. So what you can do is you can select on remove or fill missing values. Either you can fill with null, you can fill with any custom values. Let's say I want to give 0. Just be sure that what operation you're doing is making sense as per your given data set. You can apply to the same rows. I'll do the same thing and I'll click on apply. So you can see there are all the nulls in this particular column will be replaced by 0. The same, and it got captured here. You can perform all different such kinds of transformation on this data set, and which will keep capturing here on the right hand side, right? At the last, what is more important is if you click on this more, again, first thing before I click on this more, you can delete a particular stuff. Like for example, let me delete this operation. Okay, what it's going to do is when you're deleting it, by default, it will revert the operation what you have performed, and it will delete the particular instruction also which has been given. So you can, when you're working with the recipe, you can edit, you can delete, those all different kinds of stuff you can do here, right? Now you click on this more. As I was talking about initially, either you can import a recipe, you can download as YAML, you can download as JSON, right? You can download this recipe as a JSON, which I've already downloaded at my local. Let me walk you through this recipe. So this is the same recipe what we are going to apply on that new project where we have done the profiling, right? We are doing a different kinds of stuff. I mean, format date, lowercase, fill with custom values. So this is how it works, right? Based on the given instruction, it's like a made up of JSON objects. Based on the given type of operation, you provide the parameters or you provide the different kinds of things which is required, right? For example, for format, it is pretty simple. You provide the source column name and the target format. Again, if you switch to lowercase, you don't need to do anything. It's very simple. You only provide the source column. Same goes here. When you're filling the custom value, you have to apply the column date, type, source column, and value. If we go, let's say, a split, which is a complex part, right? When even we are writing a code and we are splitting around it, right? You provide include, in split, limit, pattern, and other stuff. So based on a given operation, the value of this particular JSON will vary. But if you talk about recipe, in simple, this is a JSON array. I mean, for sure, you can also have YAML. But in JSON, it's a list of an JSON array which has multiple JSON objects, and each JSON object is an action which you have requested DataBrew to perform. So if I open this particular stuff, you will see two JSON arrays which would be there here. So I think this was, so yeah, if you see that, it will open that file and it will give you again. So you can download it and you can see in the code repository. Second, what you can also do is you can publish that thing. I mean, you can go ahead, click on publish, and you can publish it in the Glue console itself with a name. That okay, what recipe name is there, what version it is, and you can publish it. You won't publish it because you're just doing a dry run here. So this is how you can create a recipe. You can download and extract the recipe, as well as you can save and version the recipe. So I'll close this particular stuff and we'll go back to our previous project where we are working on the profiling part of it. So this demo, this particular profiling is done. You can see it took somewhere around 2 minutes to complete. If you click on this particular profile output, right, what you can do is you can directly click on view data profile. So it directly took us to the output page of the profile where it's talking about that, okay, it ran 11 minutes ago. This is how total number of rows, total number of columns, integer wise, for data types wise, what's the split, how many are the missing values, missing cell is there, duplicate columns or duplicate rows are 0, the hit map kind of in proportion, which is very important when you're designing any machine learning algorithms around it. The box plot representation, the column wise, right? The same, what we have, I think this view, same what we looked at the beginning itself, the grid view, the schema. The difference, I would say, in the previous representation of grid and versus this one is this value, this data quality factor, right? As I mentioned initially, also profiling helps you to understand the data quality. So this data quality row got added into the same representation, which help you to understand, even a column wise, how the quality is, right? As you can see in the first two columns, it's 100% valid. As I move towards right, the validation got dropped because there are certain invalid or missing null is being there, right? So this is how profiling is very helpful. And as you can see, without a single line of code, in just a matter of 2 minutes, I analyzed like 100 rows in a very simple. So that's about the profiling. Next, we'll move back to our project. And what we're going to do here is we are going to work on the recipe. As I mentioned that I'll import an existing recipe and we'll work around that. So what I'm going to do is click on upload recipe. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give a name to it. Just ensure this recipe name has to be unique. It should not be unique across the project. This has to be unique across this particular region. So if let's say you have DataBrew demo, if that recipe already exists in some other project, some other your peers are working, it will give you that recipe already exists, right? This, as I mentioned initially, recipe is not bound to a project. It is bound to a specific AWS region. So if you have some other projects also, you can leverage the same recipe around it. So ensure that you give a unique name here. You can, simple of it, you can choose the file. Then create and publish your recipe. So as you publish a recipe, you can see that, okay, the recipe got published. You have a version here, which is 1.0. You can keep upgrading the versions of the same recipe. Now we'll stick back to our project. And we'll click on add steps here, right? So now we can do the same exercise what we have done for the another project, manually go play around with the column and work around the same. Or what you can also do is click import, select the recipe. We create, I want to do this recipe next. So here are the 9 instructions what we have configured in this recipe: change the format, state, the same thing what we understood, right? 9 instructions are given DataBrew to perform on my data set. Just ensure either you can append or you can overwrite. This is very important. Let's say you already have a recipe for your project. You can append that existing recipe. When you're importing, you can append to existing one, or you can overwrite. You can flush what is there and you can overwrite from scratch, right? So both the options are there. Since the recipe which was for this project is empty, I will select on append or overwrite. It's going to be the same thing. When I click next, what it's going to do is, before importing the recipe, it's going to validate that recipe against the data set. That, let's say, for example, does the column name exist, or that particular column type is suitable for given operation? Those kinds of validation check it's going to do across the specified columns. And once all the checks have been done, we can import that recipe successfully. And as I'll import, you will easily see the changes got applied. So previously there was one date column which got changed to year, month, and date. So as we can see, the total count of the columns also got increased. The state was previously higher case or uppercase, which got increased to lower case now. Even I think there were certain columns hospitalized, which got replaced by the missing value. So if you go towards hospitalized, all those missing values got replaced by the 0. So those kinds of different operations, what you can do with the recipe around it, and it can help you to get around the scene. Next, at the last, what we are going to do is we are going to create a job. This job is, let's say, if you want to automate this, right? You understood so far the project, you understood the data source, you understood profiling, but how to automate this, right? So profiling, you understood by creating the job. Similarly, you can create the recipe job. This is a second type of job. So what we can do is we can name this. Okay. Similarly, how we have done for the profiling job, we'll do the same thing here, but in the recipe job, since it will be generating a cleanse data, it will give you an option output to what, right? You can store to S3, you can store to Redshift, JDBC, or Snowflake, as I mentioned, you can store to any of the connectors here. So, and again, you can partition the data, you can compress and those kinds of stuff. We'll keep it simple in a CSV format. I'll click on the output, select. I've created a different folder around it. You can provide additional configuration of encryption and all. You can provide the job output. Let's say if you want to retry the job, or you can fail the job after a certain timeout kind of stuff. That's what you can do. You can schedule, right? As I mentioned initially also, that it's not just the automation. You can also schedule it. So you can define the scheduler part of it. At the last, we are going to define we are going to provide the IAM role. And you can click on create and run job. So we are back to the project one. What we are going to do, if you go and click on these jobs, you will see there are 2 types of job, as I mentioned initially. Under recipe job, you will see this particular job has started running. This will take around a couple of minutes to get complete. What is going to do is the same thing, what we have done on the manually. We import a recipe, we apply that recipe, and we generate a cleanse data as per my requirement. This job is also going to do the same thing in an automated fashion. It will take the data set, the recipe what we have specified, and apply the output and save the output to S3. This is how you can automate this and you can take care of that stuff, right? I think this should be there. And in meantime, let me switch to our presentation and quickly run through what different things what we have done as a recap. So we launched a CloudFormation template. We provided a data set. So that was a prerequisite. We have created the project around it. We provide the details around the project name, the IAM role, the recipe, and those stuff. We created, as I mentioned, in the same console itself, we created a data set and provided the IAM range. Then we started playing around with the DataBrew, actual work around it. We start exploring the data, the columns in it, the data type, the summary range, and all those stuff. This is the schema view of part of it. In the next, we went to the profiling and we started understanding how to create the profile around it, how you should play around with the profile, why it is important to do the profiling output. Column wise, we understood that, okay, how profiling helps. Then we started playing around with the recipe. We understood multiple things in recipe. What exactly is recipe all about, the different instruction, how you can import, export recipe. Then we applied those recipe in the data set. Finally, at the last, we are creating the DataBrew job, which should be done in a minute. And then finally, we'll see the output in the S3 bucket and the lineage part of it. So as you can see, this is succeeded. So you can see in the job input itself, this was the project, this was the data set, and this was the recipe. And this is the output. So I'll click on the output, which will take me to the S3 bucket. So under the folder, right? So this is a bucket which got created. As you can see, it is partitioned and along the stuff, right? CSV, the same thing what we have done. It has created all those stuff what we is looking around it. And you can download and you can view around the data the same. Similarly, if you go back here, and if I go towards the job name, if you click on this job, you can see the job details around it. Like, okay, how exactly the job, create a new folder for each, and those kinds of details you can see. You can provide a scheduler, whatever the input what we have given, it will give you the same kind of readout here. And in the data lineage, it will help you to understand how that recipe was there. So this is the important thing to analyze, right? Let's say assume this job got triggered and executed automatically. Then this is how it will help you to interpret. You plug the data set from S3. In this particular project, the data set was created. This was a data set name. This was the project. This was the job which you ran. This job was ran based on this recipe, and the final output got stored into the S3 bucket. So this is the lineage what you can have. Similarly, from CloudTrails, you can identify who created the jobs, who execute, and those kinds of other things, which is very core for and common for all the services. The small and interesting thing which I like a lot about this one of the services, any new thing which comes in the DataBrew, let's say for example, it supports Tableau and all, you can get in the console itself, which I am seeing this pattern is becoming now common across all the new consoles across the services. The DataBrew was the first one where what's new helps you to understand that. So if you go back, that's about, I would say, from a demo side of it. Thank you so much for listening to me. Now I'll open up for any sorts of FAQs. Feel free to let me know if you have any sorts of questions.
Hi, Sanchit. So can you hear me? Sanchit, hello? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. I think Sanchit.
Maybe Sanchit is having some issue with the connection.
Yeah, Sanchit.
Sorry, can you guys hear me now?
We can
Yeah,
hear you.
we can hear you, Sanchit. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Okay. So no, I wanted to ask now, um, you showed some actions while you were showing like this in the recipe, right? Like you can do different actions. So is there like a list of actions, or can we do custom actions there, or like how does that work? Do you have any?
Correct. So as of today,
Yeah.
Brew doesn't support any custom actions, right? It provides
Okay.
the inbuilt actions. You can select any of the predefined inbuilt actions itself.
Right.
And I think the actions itself are so exhaustive. I don't think you need any custom part of it. And again,
Okay.
I know there are certain of operation you need, which is more of a cascading in nature. You want to join to operation and do those kinds of functionality. I don't think as of today it does support. Maybe we are just almost sitting on reinvent time. Hope AWS
Yeah.
listens when it comes around it, right?
Right. Another thing, Sanchit, like, so for the now this, so based on what you told, this can be used for, let's say, scenarios like you're doing data warehousing periodically. So you can run a scheduled job and then move the data to the warehouse, like a Redshift, let's say, or even for let's say some big data analytics or something you're doing. So for those also, these could be useful, right?
Correct.
Right.
So as we talk about right at the beginning, right? When it comes to the output section of it, there are various use cases what you can have, right? The more important thing is anywhere where you need data preparation, this tool is common. It's not just meant only for, I would say, warehouse or data lake. Even you can leverage the same tool for machine learning workloads, right? Wherever
Right.
you look out for data preparation, this is the go-to tool for you or go-to
Right.
service.
And do you have any idea about the cost of data?
Correct. This is a very good question. So from a costing perspective, right, in DataBrew, the costing is more on the number of interactive sessions. So if in the demo itself, right, you saw when I toggle to the new session, it started everything from scratch, right? So the duration
Right.
my session is on and I'm interactingly working on that session. For that session, they have a flat hourly price as well as the entire data processing, the number of data processing hops, what you're taking. Based on that, it's given the cost, but the cost is very cheap because, right, and it comes to data services, it's like cent or is there. I don't have the exact number, but those are the two factors where you have this cost around it.
Right. Cool. Thank you, Sanjit. Does anyone else have any questions? Maybe you can do that quiz, Sanchit. Like you can ask a question, and the first person to answer it, either they can unmute themselves and answer, or they can put it in the chat. We'll get a $50 AWS credit. We'll email you the code. So, Sanjit, maybe you can ask that question. Just one question.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the first question from DataBrew is, do you need to provide any sorts of compute configuration for DataBrew?
You guys can unmute and answer, or just put it in the chat, guys.
Let me pardon one more time. Do you need to really provide any sorts of compute related configuration for DataBrew?
Not required as it's serverless.
That's correct.
Okay. Cool. So since Subbalakshmi answered, I think she wins the credits. Subbalakshmi, you can email me. Just drop your email in the chat, so I can. We'll send you the credits after the session. Congratulations on winning the credits. So Sanchit, please, if anyone else have any questions, please ask Sanchit. But Sanchit, by the way, it was a very, very nice session. I really learned a lot today, because I'm also learning a little bit about big data and stuff, and this was really helpful. So I think I might just use this in one of my projects. So thank you so much, Sanchit. It was really well done. You really what do you say? You did it in a nice. You presented in a nice way. So thank you.
My pleasure. Yep.
If anyone else, yeah. Right, I got the email, Subhash. I'll send you the credits. Thank you. And if anyone else have any questions, please ask, or maybe we can wrap up the session. Yeah, I think we can wrap it up, right, Sanchit? Yeah. Thank you so much, Sanchit, for taking the time and doing such a wonderful session. It was really helpful. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Do join. We will do monthly meetups. So if you didn't win this time, you could win next time as well. So please do join us in our following meetups as well. Thanks again, Sanchit. Maybe hopefully we can do another session in the future as well. And do
Sure.
keep in touch.
Sure. Thank you so much
Right.
for giving
Thank
this
you so much.
opportunity. Looking
Of
forward to
course,
working
Sanchit.
with you guys. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Right. Thank you. Thank you, Sanchit. See you guys. See you.
Thank you, Sanchit.
Thank you.
Yeah.